New revelations show how the United States has been exhausting its own high-end missile defenses to shield Israel. Trump's billion-dollar missile shield is increasingly being used not to guard US troops, but to protect Netanyahu's forces, raising serious questions over who this arsenal really serves. The US burned through roughly 200 THAAD missiles trying to stop Iranian salvos, yet still failed to prevent deadly hits on Israeli territory. Despite this massive firepower, scores of Israelis were killed, prompting a brutal question. Is America's prized shield simply no match for Mujtaba's evolving missiles? One US official has delivered a shocking assessment after this bruising exchange, admitting that Israel is not capable of fighting and winning wars on its own. US burnt through nearly all of its arsenal for Israel, and the incident coincided with tensions in Asia as Xi Jinping eyes Taiwan, raising fears of a Chinese invasion. In a stunning development, US officials say Washington has already used more than half of its entire THAAD inventory during the war with Iran, a staggering drain on an elite system. Those anti-missile interceptors were fired primarily while defending Israel from Iranian attacks, rather than protecting US bases, according to the reporting. These details were reported on May 21 by the Washington Post, which cited serving US officials who are directly familiar with the internal assessments. Altogether, the US used more than 200 THAAD interceptors to shoot down missiles that were bound for Israel, firing salvo after salvo in a bid to thin out Iran's strikes. On top of that, the US military launched over 100 SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors from its ships, again focused largely on defending Israeli skies. Each THAAD interceptor costs an estimated $12 to $15 million, and only about 96 new missiles are produced in an average year, making the current rate of use extremely hard to replace. By defense cost estimates, the THAAD interceptors already expended amount to roughly $1.2 to $1.4 billion worth of hardware, just on this one conflict. Israel, by comparison, used fewer than 100 Arrow interceptors and about 90 missiles from its David Sling system, relying heavily on US coverage and layered defenses. If the war with Iran restarts at anything like the previous intensity, US planners believe they will likely need to fire even more interceptors to keep Israel shielded. Washington expects to step up further because Israel has reportedly sent some of its key anti-missile systems for maintenance, reducing its own immediate capacity. One US official said, and I quote, "Israel is not capable of fighting and winning wars on its own, but nobody actually knows this, because they never see the back end." End quote. Publicly, the Pentagon has denied there is any problem with burden sharing and insists that the US-Israel defense relationship is balanced and sustainable. Israel has also consistently rejected claims that it is running low on interceptors, maintaining that its own missile defense stocks remain robust. In April, Israel approved plans to boost production of its Arrow interceptor missiles, a move aimed at increasing its independent capacity over the coming years. During the Iranian barrage, an estimated 650 ballistic missiles were launched at Israel, according to figures reported by Israeli media. Despite the heavy interception effort, at least 16 missiles armed with conventional warheads still managed to hit populated areas inside Israel, causing casualties and damage. Separately, Israel reported around 50 incidents of Iranian cluster munitions striking populated areas, adding to the humanitarian and political fallout. Trump administration officials are reportedly raising new questions about how the Pentagon is portraying US power projection in the Iran war, with internal doubts emerging over whether the public narrative matches the real battlefield and logistics picture. Vice President J.D. Vance has reportedly been asking whether the Pentagon is giving President Donald Trump the full picture of the war, especially in private discussions about costs, risks, and sustainability. According to The Atlantic, Vance raised concerns in closed-door meetings about US missile stockpiles and whether key munitions are being depleted faster than the administration has publicly acknowledged. Vance is said to fear that American missile reserves may be far more strained than official messaging suggests, particularly after weeks of high-intensity operations tied to the Iran conflict. Those concerns reportedly extend beyond Iran, with Vance worrying about whether the United States would still be able to fight a major future war in Taiwan, Korea, or Europe if stocks are being burned down too quickly now. Despite that, US military officials and War Secretary Pete Hegseth have continued to insist that American stockpiles remain robust and that the military's position is still strong. Officials familiar with intelligence assessments told The Atlantic that the internal picture may be more complicated than those public assurances suggest, helping explain why questions inside the administration are growing sharper. The United States weapons inventory may be under increasing strain, raising concerns about readiness for future conflicts. A report by Business Insider suggests that critical munitions are being consumed at a significant pace during the ongoing Iran war. Over the course of just 39 days, US forces reportedly relied heavily on 7 key weapon systems in coordination with Israel. These findings were highlighted by 2 warfare specialists associated with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. According to defense analysts, such levels of consumption could pose challenges if a larger conflict were to emerge. The report indicates that while the US maintains substantial stockpiles, they may not be sufficient for prolonged or simultaneous wars. Even prior to the Iran conflict, assessment suggested that US stockpiles could be stretched in the event of a major confrontation with China. Experts have warned that replenishing munitions used in the Iran war could take considerable time and industrial capacity. Some estimates indicate that more than half of pre-war inventories for certain systems may already have been expended. The scale of US munitions usage during the Iran conflict is reflected in the numbers below. Around 1,430 Patriot interceptors have reportedly been used out of a total inventory of approximately 2,330 units. 4 SM-3 interceptors. Estimates suggest that between 130 and 250 missiles have been expended from a stockpile exceeding 400. In the case of SM-6 missiles, usage is believed to have reached up to 370 out of an available inventory of about 1,160. Precision strike missiles, considered a newer battlefield asset, have seen between 40 and 70 units deployed from roughly 90 available. Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles have also been used extensively, with more than 850 fired from a stockpile exceeding 3,000. Similarly, around 1,000 joint air-to-surface standoff missiles have reportedly been utilized from an inventory of over 4,000 units. In response, Washington is reportedly moving to expand production and rebuild depleted stockpiles. Lockheed Martin is expected to increase THAAD interceptor production capacity to approximately 400 units annually. Production of Tomahawk missiles is also being scaled up to exceed 1,000 units per year. However, estimates suggest it could take more than 4 years to fully replenish certain key systems. As a result, analysts believe the US could face increased vulnerability in the event of another major conflict. Many of the munitions expended in the Iran war are considered essential for deterrence and operations involving China. Military experts have emphasized the importance of maintaining sufficient long-range strike capabilities for future scenarios. The report further cautions that a potential conflict with China could lead to even faster depletion of US stockpiles. Notably, Pentagon estimates suggest the war with Iran has already cost US taxpayers close to $30 billion, and that figure is still rising. In effect, that nearly $30 billion price tag has fully disabled only 3 key Iranian missile sites near the Strait of Hormuz, a sobering return on investment. The total includes day-to-day combat operations, along with the repair and replacement of damaged US weapons and platforms worn down by the conflict. Reports say Iran has already restarted drone production during the ceasefire, quietly bringing assembly lines and repair facilities back online to replace war losses and expand its fleet. US intelligence now believes Tehran is rebuilding its weapons arsenal significantly faster than early post-strike estimates suggested, forcing analysts to revise their timelines. American officials say Iran has already exceeded the initial reconstruction schedules that Washington drew up, demonstrating high resilience and pre-planned redundancy in its military industry. According to these assessments, Iran is actively replacing missile sites, launchers, and key weapons facilities that were destroyed or damaged during the war, often dispersing and hardening new locations. One U.S. assessment now warns that Iran could reconstitute much of its drone capability in as little as 6 months, restoring a core pillar of its long-range strike and proxy support strategy. Despite early U.S. claims of severe damage, fresh intelligence reporting indicates Iran still retains meaningful ballistic missile capabilities and was not disarmed of this option. American assessments suggest that a large share of Iran's missile launchers survived, meaning the country can still fire salvos if conflict resumes at scale. More detailed estimates now say roughly 2/3 of Tehran's launchers remain intact after US-Israeli strikes, underscoring the limits of even intensive air and missile campaigns. Reports add that some buried or hardened missile launchers were located, dug out, and recovered during the current ceasefire, then prepared to return to operational status. Intelligence also indicates that thousands of Iranian drones, estimated at nearly half of Iran's total pre-war drone capacity, are still available for use. Analysts note that Iran's coastal cruise missile network along its shoreline remains largely untouched, with launch sites and support infrastructure still functional. Because of this intact coastal network, Iran retains the ability to threaten or disrupt commercial and military shipping traffic transiting the Strait of Hormuz if tensions spike again. U.S. intelligence assessments further allege that Russia has been helping Iran rebuild after the strikes, including with technical know-how and possibly components. American sources also claim China has continued supplying Iran with missile-related components, despite sanctions and Western diplomatic pressure. Echoing these concerns, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly accused China of assisting Iran's missile production, framing it as a strategic challenge for Israel and its allies. An Iranian source told RIA Novosti that Tehran still possesses advanced weapons that have not yet been used. Iran warned those weapons are ready for deployment if the conflict escalates once again.